Bible in a year, making it easier to understand.
So, Stephanie, let me ask you something. Have you ever been on a road trip where everything is going perfectly? Music is great, snacks are on point, GPS says you're ahead of schedule, and then somebody in the car says, "Hey, let's take this little detour," and 45 minutes later, you're lost in a cornfield with no cell signal?
That is oddly specific, John. But yes, every road trip has that one person who wants to explore.
Well, that's Israel right now. They just had the most epic winning streak in their history. Victories over Sihon and Og, Balaam's curses turned into blessings, and the promised land is literally visible from where they're camped. They're on the 1-yard line. The end zone is right there. And then they take the worst detour in the history of detours.
And this one doesn't lead to a cornfield. It leads to a place called Peor. Welcome back to the Deeper Dive community, everyone. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm John. Today is day 66, and we're covering numbers 25 and 26. And I need to warn you up front, chapter 25 is intense. It's one of those passages that makes people uncomfortable, and honestly, it should. But there's something incredibly important buried in it.
Okay, so set the stage for us. Where are we picking up?
Israel is camped at Shittim in the plains of Moab. Remember, Balak just tried to curse them through Balaam, and it completely backfired 3 times. Every curse came out as a blessing. So Balak's spiritual warfare approach has totally failed. But here's the thing. What Balaam's curses couldn't do from the outside, a different strategy is about to accomplish from the inside.
What do you mean?
The Moabite and Midianite women begin inviting the Israelite men to their festivals. On the surface, it looks like a cultural exchange. Come hang out, eat some food, experience our traditions. But it wasn't innocent. The text says the women invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods, and it escalated fast. The men ate, bowed down to Baal of Peor, and yoked themselves to this false god.
And the Hebrew word there for yoked is simmed, which literally means to bind or to harness. It's the word you'd use for yoking an ox to a plow. These men didn't just dabble. They chained themselves to something that wasn't theirs to carry.
And this is the pattern that repeats through the entire Bible and into our lives today. The enemy rarely kicks down your front door. He sends an invitation that looks like a good time. It's the come-to-the-party strategy. Nobody walks into compromise with their eyes wide open. They slide into it, one yes at a time.
So, how does God respond?
God is furious. He tells Moses, "Take all the chiefs of the people and hang them in the sun before the Lord, that the fierce anger of the Lord may turn away from Israel." This is a national emergency. A plague breaks out, and Moses tells the judges to execute anyone in their tribe who has yoked themselves to Baal.
And while this is happening, while Moses and the whole congregation are weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting, trying to figure out how to stop this disaster, something unbelievable happens.
An Israelite man named Zimri, a leader from the tribe of Simeon, walks right past them, right past the weeping, right past Moses. And he brazenly brings a Midianite woman named Cusby, who is the daughter of a Midianite chief, into his tent in broad daylight, in front of everyone. It's the most flagrant act of defiance in the entire book of Numbers.
He wasn't even hiding it?
Not even a little. This is public, in-your-face rebellion while the nation is literally dying from a plague. It's like somebody lighting a cigarette in the middle of a fire safety seminar. And that's when one man decides he's seen enough.
Phinehas, the grandson of Aaron. Tell us what he does, John.
Phinehas sees what Zimri has done. He gets up from the assembly, grabs a spear, follows Zimri into the tent, and drives the spear through both of them. And the moment he does it, the plague stops. 24,000 people had already died, but Phinehas's act draws the line.
Now, John, I know some listeners are going to hear that and feel really uncomfortable. This sounds extreme. This sounds violent. How do we process this?
We process it by understanding the context. This isn't random violence. This isn't vigilante justice for personal reasons. This is a priest carrying out judicial authority during a national crisis where thousands are dying because of a specific sin that is spreading like wildfire. Phinehas isn't acting out of anger. He's acting out of what the text calls kuna. We'll get deeper into that Hebrew word in segment 3, but it means righteous jealousy. It's the same word used to describe God's own jealousy for his people.
And God's response confirms it. Look at what he says in verses 10 through 13. Phinehas has turned back my wrath from the people of Israel. in that he was zealous with my zeal among them, so that I did not consume the people of Israel in my zeal. God gives Phinehas a covenant of peace and a covenant of a perpetual priesthood.
Think about that. The guy who picked up a spear gets a covenant of peace. Because sometimes the most peaceful thing you can do is stop the thing that's destroying everyone around you.
That is a word for somebody today. Sometimes standing up and saying no more isn't aggression. It's protection. It's love with a backbone.
After the break, we're going to talk about what happens next, because God doesn't just deal with the crisis. He orders a complete reset, a brand new census, a fresh count of a new generation, and the numbers tell a story that will blow your mind.
Stay with us, Deeper Dive family. We'll be right back. And we are back. Welcome back to the Deeper Dive, everyone. Okay, John, before the break, we talked about the crisis at Peor, Baal worship, the plague, Phinehas' bold stand. Now God orders something that feels almost like a hard reboot. What happens next?
Numbers 26. God speaks to Moses and Eleazar the priest. Notice it's Eleazar now, because Aaron has already died. And he says, take a census of all the congregation of the people of Israel from 20 years old and upward, by their fathers' houses, all in Israel who are able to go to war.
Now, this is the second census. The first one was way back in Numbers chapter 1, right at the beginning of the wilderness journey. That was 38 years ago. Why does God need another head count?
2 reasons. First, the practical one. They're about to enter the promised land, and they need to know how to divide it up. The bigger the tribe, the bigger the territory. Second, and this is the one that hits hard, God is documenting a generational shift. He's showing in black and white that the old generation is gone and a new one has taken its place.
And when you compare the two censuses side by side, the numbers tell an incredible story. The first census counted 603,550 fighting men. This second census, 601,730. Almost exactly the same number.
That's mind-blowing, Steph. God didn't shrink Israel. He didn't reduce them. Even though an entire generation died in the wilderness, every single adult who came out of Egypt and refused to enter the land at Kadesh Barnea, God replaced them one for one. The disobedient generation perished, but God's promise didn't.
That's the startup pivot of the Bible. The original team didn't work out, but the company didn't fold. God restructured, brought in new talent, and the mission continued. The vision was never dependent on one generation's obedience.
I love that. God restructured. He really did. And when you go tribe by tribe, the changes are fascinating. Some tribes grew dramatically. Manasseh went from 32,200 to 52,700. That's a massive increase. But Simeon dropped from 59,300 all the way down to 22,200. They lost more than half their population.
And isn't it significant that Zimri, the man Phinehas killed, was from the tribe of Simeon?
Exactly. Many scholars believe the plague hit Simeon the hardest because Zimri's rebellion was symptomatic of a deeper problem within that tribe. The census is quietly telling us that the consequences of Baal Peor fell heaviest on those who embraced it most fully. The numbers are a spiritual audit.
And then there's this devastating verse at the end of the census. Verse 64 says, "But among these there was not one of those listed by Moses and Aaron the priest, who had listed the people of Israel in the wilderness of Sinai." And verse 65, "For the Lord had said of them, they shall die in the wilderness. Not one of them was left, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun."
2. Out of over 600,000, 2 men from the original generation are still standing. Joshua and Caleb. The 2 spies who said, "We can take the land." The 2 who trusted God when everyone else panicked. 38 years later, they're still here. Everyone who said we can't is gone. The 2 who said God can are about to walk in.
John, that is such a powerful picture. In any generation, in any organization, in any church, the people who survive the wilderness are the ones who refuse to let fear overwrite faith. Joshua and Caleb didn't have a special shield. They had a special perspective. They looked at the same giants everyone else saw and chose to measure them against God instead of against themselves.
And here's the hidden detail that most people miss in the census. Verse 33 mentions the daughters of Zelophehad. Just a brief mention. Zelophehad had no sons, but daughters. It seems like a footnote, But those daughters are about to make history in Numbers 27. They're going to petition Moses for inheritance rights and win. God is planting the seed right here in the census.
I love that. God buries the seeds of tomorrow's breakthrough in today's footnotes.
You know what the census also tells us? God is an accountant who never loses track of his people. Every tribe is counted. Every family is named. In a chapter that most people skip because it's just a list of numbers, God is saying, I see every single one of you. I know your name, your family, your tribe, and exactly where you fit in my plan.
In a world where people feel invisible, where social media reduces you to a number of likes and algorithms decide if anyone sees your story, God is still counting. Not counting your failures, counting you, knowing you, placing you.
And here's the beautiful thing about this fresh generation. They didn't earn their spot. They inherited a promise that was given to Abraham centuries earlier. Their parents forfeited it through disobedience, but the promise itself never expired. God's covenant doesn't have a terms and conditions fine print that invalidates it when humans mess up.
So the land is going to be divided by lot based on tribal size?
Yes. Verses 52 through 56 lay out the system. Larger tribes get larger portions, smaller tribes get smaller ones, and the specific locations are determined by lot. It's a combination of practical math and divine guidance. God is saying, I'll use both a calculator and a prayer to make sure everyone gets what they need.
A calculator and a prayer. That should be on a bumper sticker.
After the break, we're going to do our hidden gem deep dive into the Hebrew word kana, the word behind Phinehas's zeal. And I promise you, it's going to change how you think about jealousy. Plus, our text message summary of both chapters. Don't go anywhere.
We'll be right back, Deeper Dive family.
And we are back for the final segment. All right, Deeper Dive community, it's hidden gem time, and today's word is a big one. Stephanie, take us into it.
The word is kana, spelled Gofnan Aleph in Hebrew. It's the word translated as jealous or zealous in the Phinehas story. God says Phinehas was zealous with my zeal. In Hebrew, that's kana with my kana. And understanding this word changes everything about how we read this chapter.
Because in English, jealousy is almost always negative, right? We think of it as petty, insecure, controlling.
Exactly. But in Hebrew, kana has two faces. On one side, yes, it can mean sinful jealousy, the kind that destroys relationships, the kind James warns about in the New Testament. But on the other side, kana describes a protective, passionate love that refuses to share what it has covenanted to guard. It's the jealousy of a mother who sees a stranger reaching for her child. It's not insecurity, it's fierce loyalty.
And when God says, I am a jealous God, throughout the Old Testament, he's using kana. He's not saying, I'm insecure and petty. He's saying, I love you too much to watch you destroy yourself with something that isn't me. It's the same energy as a firefighter pulling someone out of a burning building who keeps trying to go back inside. That's Q1.
So when Phinehas acts with kana, he's mirroring God's own heart?
Exactly. God's assessment is, he was Quana with my Quana. Phinehas didn't act out of hatred for Zimri. He acted out of love for God's people who were dying by the thousands. His zeal matched God's zeal. And because of that alignment, God gives him the covenant of shalom, the covenant of peace. The zealous man receives peace because righteous zeal and deep peace are not opposites. They're partners.
That reframes so much for our generation, John. We live in a culture that says passion for truth is intolerance, that drawing boundaries is judgmental, that caring deeply enough to say, this is wrong, makes you the problem. But God says no. There's a kind of fire that doesn't destroy. It protects. Phinehas-level zeal isn't about being angry at people. It's about being unwilling to watch a lie burn down what God built.
And check this out. The covenant of perpetual priesthood given to Phinehas actually lasts for centuries. His descendants serve as high priests all the way through the exile and beyond. Zadok, the famous priest in David and Solomon's time, he's from Phinehas's line. One act of courageous obedience set up a dynasty that lasted 1,000 years.
One moment of courage, 1,000 years of impact. That's the math of faithfulness.
All right, let's do our text message summary. If you had to text Numbers 25 and 26 to a friend who's never read the Bible, here's what you send.
Okay, here goes. Israel made terrible choices at a party. 24K people died. One guy stood up and stopped it, got a permanent promotion. Then God did a full recount. Same size army, brand new people. Only 2 OGs left. Fresh start. God doesn't quit.
That's perfect. God doesn't quit. That's the whole book of Numbers in 3 words, honestly.
And you know what I love about the juxtaposition of chapters 25 and 26? Chapter 25 is the worst of Israel. Compromise, rebellion, death. Chapter 26 is God's response. Not destruction, but renewal. Not cancellation, but a recount. God's answer to a failed generation isn't to abandon the project. It's to raise up a new team and keep going.
It's the gospel before the gospel. God's plan doesn't fail because people fail. His promise to Abraham, "I will make you a great nation, and through you all the families of the earth will be blessed," is still on schedule. Every name in that census is proof that God keeps his word even when his people don't keep theirs.
And for anyone listening who feels like they're part of a failed generation, maybe your family has a history of brokenness. Maybe the generation before you made choices that left wreckage. God is showing you right here that he specializes in fresh starts. You are not defined by the census you came from. You are defined by the God who is counting you for what's ahead.
That's so good, Steph. Let's wrap it up with a prayer.
Father, thank you for the story of Phinehas, a man who cared enough to act when everyone else was frozen. Give us that kind of courage. Not anger, not judgment, but a love so deep that we can't sit still when the people around us are being destroyed by lies. And thank you for the census, for the reminder that even when one generation falls, your promise doesn't. You raise up new people, new voices, new hearts. You don't quit on us, and we are so grateful. Help us to be Joshua and Caleb people. Help us to be the ones who are still standing when the wilderness is over. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for joining us today, Deeper Dive family. That's day 66, Numbers 25 and 26. Tomorrow we're heading into Numbers 27 through 29. And let me just say, there's a group of women in chapter 27 who are about to change ancient law forever. You do not want to miss it.
Like, share, and subscribe. Leave us a comment and tell us, what's your Phinehas moment? When did you have to stand up when everyone else was sitting down? We'd love to hear your story.
Making the Bible easier to understand, one day at a time. See you tomorrow, everybody.